So you are Twitter famous for
Yes. Yes.
defining what a data scientist is in this
Yeah.
very comical tweet that I cite all of the time to define myself,
Okay.
which is that a data scientist is a person who is better at statistics than software engineers and better at software engineering than statisticians.
Statisticians. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So this was written over 10 years ago. Do you think it's still true?
Yeah. I do. I do think it's still true. I do think it's still true. It's funny. I think I hang out a lot with the analytics engineering community now these days, like the folks around DBT and stuff like that. And so there's a wonderful woman in that community named Emily Sharia who just started her own company called Turbine. She gave a talk last year called "Down with Data Science." Down with data science, and she was a sort of engineering manager, data leader at GitLab and then at Netlify. And she does not like the data scientist naming or title thing, um, because she feels that it's the term has become so overloaded as to become kind of meaningless, right? Like telling someone you're a data scientist doesn't really seem to tell you anything about like what exactly does this person do, right? And I think that's a fair critique. I think that's a legitimate thing. I think there are like I do think the data scientist title, while very useful and especially useful, like not for nothing at these like fast growing kind of tech companies I tend to work at, where you do need a lot of generalists, you need people who can wear a lot of hats and stuff like that. It definitely does tend to break down. And I think I'd like to think that over time, data scientists kind of like go into like one of three different directions. And so can you humor me? Can I haven't done this before. I haven't like pitched this, but let's see how
Not
this
only will
goes.
I humor you, I'm going to take
Yeah.
detailed notes.
Detailed notes. Okay. Um, so I think one direction data science can go in is kind of the direction of like going really deep into kind of methodology and stuff like that. And so this is stuff like the folks who do causal inference, contextual bandits, like very advanced A/B testing kind of stuff. The folks who go to Google, Facebook, the Ubers, the Lyfts of the world, like where they have these really, really like legit hard statistical problems and stuff like that. And they go really deep on the stuff. To me, like always, experimentation, A/B testing, and causal inference, contextual bandits, like how do we make decisions better with data, has always been like the highest calling of data scientists in some sense. And so, like the Sean Taylors of the world, I think of as like the archetype of this model.
Yeah. We've had him
That's
on the show.
I am not surprised by that. Yes,
Uh,
he is fantastic.
yeah,
Yeah.
he is fantastic. He was in episode number 617, and he very narrowly missed being in the top 10 most popular episodes of 2022. He was the 11th.
Yeah, he actually mentioned that to me when I told him I was coming on the show. He just wouldn't. He was like so broken up about it. He was just anyway. No, I don't think anyway. He may be broken up about it. I'm not sure, but he didn't mention it.
Well, at the time that we're recording, he doesn't know yet. I haven't. That episode hasn't been published yet.
haven't broken it to him. Okay, got it.
No.
That's good. So that's one. That is one route. Another route is sort of to become like a very deep domain expert in some problem area. And there's a data scientist I worked with at Slack named Ravi Menon, who went to become like the VP of like all of data at Slack at some point. And his thing initially was he was the expert on the domain of Slack's pricing model. So like Slack had a usage-based pricing model like back in the day, which, and now there's like all these product-led growth companies who all do this. But at the time, it was a very sort of novel and innovative idea. And Ravi became the kind of absolute unquestioned expert on like Slack's pricing model. How did it translate into like the core business metrics of MRR, ARR? How did it relate to our enterprise deals? Like he really just became like, this was like his thing. This was his domain, obviously like super, super important to the company. And again, there are things like this for folks at Google, for folks at Netflix, like for all these different things. There's an area where like there's this really, really important, very, very quantitative business domain, and like the data scientist owns it. And then they expand beyond just being like the data scientist for it to being like the leader for it. And that's sort of like the next path. And then there's the final path, which is the one I took, which is the like data engineer in denial. And that was more or less me. Like I had done like a little bit of statistics and stuff like that as part of my graduate school stuff and my undergraduate stuff. But really, I was just like a software engineer who had not like discovered software engineering. And to me, honestly, John, in terms of like the engineering work I've done, like rebuilding Slack's search indexing pipeline, which is the pipeline that powers like the backend indexing system for Slack search, is still to me like the thing I am most proud of, like by far. Like that was my, it was so hard. And it was like every possible nightmare data pipeline problem you can encounter, we would encounter like a million times basically because of the volume and the scale of the data and stuff. And I love that, man. I love that. That was just such a favorite to me. And so that was like my favorite thing I got to do. And so I feel like my whole career was like working my way towards like kind of finding that problem and getting to work on it. So yeah, those are my big three. So data scientist to me still super useful, especially for generalists, especially at like early stage startups, but still like to me an unstable kind of profession, not something that you can maybe do like, and inevitably I feel like you gravitate towards one of these sort of three different outcomes of like super quant researcher, causal inference, experimentation, domain expert in some sort of quantitative domain, or finally like just data engineer. Because back to the theme of like high quality data, simple analysis on it, just really solves like a large set of problems. So yeah, that's my answer, man.